Whether you're a small business owner curious about modern marketing or a creative person looking to start or help businesses, these are the thoughts, techniques, and experiments to keep your knowledge base growing. With us today, we have Scott Simson. Scott ran Video Marketing World with a couple people. We're going to dive more into that in a second. But first, Scott, how are you today? How are things in Texas?
I'm doing very well. Things in Texas are about the same as anywhere else in the world. We're opening things up slowly, but I can't wait to get back out of the house and have some fun with the family.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, the reason I was reaching out to you was because you put on Video Marketing World, which was a fantastic conference. I couldn't have been more excited about one conference having so many speakers and topics that really aligned with where I wanted to go in life. So that was a very exciting time for me. And I wanted to kind of dive into the decision to go virtual. But first, can you give us just a little history on who you are and why you decided to create Video Marketing World?
Yeah, so I've been a full-time YouTuber for the last number of years. We started on YouTube in 2014, and that grew into a substantial channel that allowed us to go full-time just being content creators on YouTube. And a couple of years ago, I had started doing some, I guess it was pro bono consulting for businesses on YouTube. People would ask me questions and be like, "Well, this is what you need to do," and that really turned into kind of the beginning of a business. And so when the opportunity came to take over Video Marketing World last year, I was like, yeah, let's take this to the next level and really start to impact businesses with the knowledge that I've learned on YouTube and with social media in general. So I didn't actually found Video Marketing World. That was my business partner, Jeremy Vest. I just had the opportunity to come in and take it from what Jeremy had done to kind of a new level.
Nice. And I had actually heard about this conference through Amanda Horvath, and she was just someone I heard on a random podcast and then saw a YouTube episode. And she had said, she lives in Austin. She said, come to Dallas, check out this conference. It's intimate. It's focused on exactly what we're talking about here. What are some of those principles that you had kind of leading into this year's conference before COVID happened? Like, what type of person were you trying to attract, and where does that intimacy balance with, having a lot of people come to your conference?
Yeah, so great questions. So number one, we really have always targeted the business-minded creator or the small business owner or even marketing teams from bigger businesses. And our goal has always been to teach our attendees how to use social, how to use video and YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all of the avenues for video, and to teach them how to use those to grow their business, to improve their lead flow, and to become the opening to their funnel. Because what we've noticed in being in the industry is that if you look around, businesses do social. Most businesses do social media completely wrong, where they're talking at the consumer rather than trying to have conversations with, trying to build communities of people who will be diehard fans and loyal customers. They sometimes treat social media as another billboard. And in the customers or the clients that we've had that build communities are thriving and they're incredible and they're doing very well. And obviously we've seen we've seen companies do things the other way, where it's just a billboard. It doesn't work. There's no effect. There's no engagement, and they don't have the loyalty, the brand loyalty that some of these other companies do. So our target market has always been people or entities that are focused on doing social media the right way and learning how to build a community. The other question was the intimacy. So our conference has always been between 300 and 400 people. And the reason that we do that is because when we have 30 speakers coming in over the course of a few days, we want to make sure that our speaker to attendee ratio is to the point where our speakers or our attendees have the opportunity to talk with the people who are on the front lines who are doing these things and network and build relationships. And you can't do that when you've got a 10,000 person conference, because there's a line of hundreds of people who are wanting to talk to one person. And so they get their stage time, but you get very little time to interact with them. our speakers have always been the type of people, as soon as they're done speaking, we go to a break, they go into the hall, they start talking to people, they come and eat lunch with people, they come to the networking events. And our goal is to really foster that type of a environment where people can network with the speakers that they perceive as being, knowledgeable and experts in the industry.
I think, I mean, it's so important because we pretty much preach that, find your community online. Like, this is an unbelievable resource to use for getting to know people that are similar minded, getting to know potential clients or customers. But then there's always that human like interaction that really means something. And so when you plan all these things leading up to an in-person conference and COVID-19 hits, the travel ban hits, can you tell us a little bit about how that decision, a little bit about the timeline and how that decision was made to go completely online?
Yeah, it was weird, because we didn't really start hearing a lot about it until February, and then we were watching it very closely. And in at the beginning of March, before any other conferences really had canceled anything, I think Social Media Marketing World just got finished, and everybody was like, "Everybody's here," and it was great. And we're like, we initially thought maybe there was a way, but really the writing was on the wall that things were just going to be we're just going to get worse and worse. So we made the decision to cancel really before anybody else did. And we had a lot of people who were, messaging us like, "You're crazy. This is dumb. Just everybody meet. This is, this isn't going to be that big of a deal." And we're like, "No, trust us, just watch. It's going to happen." And sure enough, week by week went by, everybody kept canceling things. And finally, it's like, we got into April and everything was shut down. So we were happy that we decided to make that decision, or that transition early. And because we made it early enough, it gave us about a month and a half to figure out a plan to transition it all online. And that was difficult. We hadn't ever done any type of online conference before. And I mean, I think very few people do it, unless you're running a summit or something like that. It's like, if you run a conference, you run the conference, and then you might have replays that you offer online, but you don't do everything online. So, so yeah, I mean, that was kind of the initial turning point for us to make it online. Now, the marketing that went into the transition was another beast, because a lot of people aren't used to paying for online conferences or summits. They consider them summits, and so we had a little bit of a stigma that we were fighting against there. So we really had to distinguish Video Marketing World Conference as a conference and not an online summit or virtual summit that people would typically get for free. And I think that we did a pretty good job. Again, like we learned a lot of things along the way, but ultimately when it came to game day, things ended up panning out perfectly. So we're excited about the outcome for Video Marketing World 2020.
Things went very well. I have lots of questions about it because, you know, with these uncertain times, I think that even if we return to a new normal or whatever term you want to use here shortly, I think video conferencing and um, events like Social Media Marketing World could be very profitable and beneficial for a lot of people. And I felt the exact same way as you were kind of talking about. Like, I didn't want to pay an online ticket just to go watch a 30-minute YouTube video and then watch the next 30-minute YouTube video. You all did a great job of the interactivity. Different presenters did different things, but you were able to ask questions and you all stuck with it. You were able to stick to a timeline. But for not only people that, well, for my curiosity, but for also people that were wondering, uh, what all they need in line to put on something like you all did, what were some of the non-negotiables kind of coming in to the event that you all knew you needed if you were going to do this online?
That's a great question too. So one of the things, like I was talking about earlier, is our the interaction between our attendees and our speakers. And so I really did my best to commit all of our speakers to being in the chat during their presentation. So we had most of our speakers film their presentation ahead of time, and they sent all the presentations to me a couple weeks ahead of time, and then what we would do during the presentation is we would play their video, and then they would be in the chat answering questions as things were moving forward. Now, one of the other things that we did, we went back and forth for a long time between Zoom as the service that we used, Zoom Webinar or other webinar services, and nothing really ever felt right, because the key ingredient to a conference is the ability to network. And you can't network on Zoom because you click on somebody's name and and it doesn't do anything, right? You don't get to see any information about them. All you know about that person is what their screen name is, and that they're leaving comments. But so we decided that we wanted to take it to social media and stream it all through our Facebook group. So that way you could still have that element of networking, and everybody has a profile reset, so you can click on their name, see what they're all about. You can request a friend. People are already used to networking through social media and through Facebook. But then the other added benefit that Facebook offered was that you could essentially lock down your group, so that way you didn't have to let in anybody who didn't pay for the conference. And so you have that added benefit of, I guess, a little bit of security. We looked at doing it on YouTube, but we're like, no, people can share the link. We looked at doing it on LinkedIn Live, and again, same thing. People could share the link, and everybody in your network could find it. And so Facebook, the Facebook group, ended up being the best platform to use for us, just simply because we could have the networking element, and then almost everybody's already on Facebook. All of our speakers were on Facebook because they do business on Facebook, and most of our attendees are on Facebook too because again, they're involved in social media.
Sure. Yeah, it was so well done, and the interactivity was phenomenal as far as having these professionals answer your questions as you're watching their video. It worked out very well, and I think it's a format that if it can be duplicated, which it sounds like, with Facebook, it's possible that a lot of people could potentially do this and take advantage of that security. But when you talk about starting off with Mark Cuban, and then going into Luria Petrucci, which I had seen before, but with her giving back comments and replies and really digging into her live streaming, those two back to back were unbelievable. Your entire lineup was fantastic. Could you maybe get into a little bit of how, first of all, what the criteria was for maybe someone that was a potential speaker, and then how you went about getting some of these really big names and as far as influencing, whether it be social media or worldwide?
Yeah, so we try to every year have a very well-rounded, diverse group of presenters, and most of the time they fall within our network of people that we know, that we've met at different conferences, or that we've done collaborations with, or that we've just come to know as being creators in the industry. And so a lot of the times, just getting the presenters like Luria is just a matter for us of just reaching out and asking them if they'll present. But we always try to find people that represent um, kind of that well-rounded, like all-encompassing. Like, we're going to talk about video online, and we're going to cover everything. And so, like, Luria covered live, and Ethan Butte from BombBomb covered email, video marketing through email. And we had a number of YouTube experts on there. We had a number of not Instagram, LinkedIn experts on there, and we had a TikTok expert on there. And so when we develop our show schedule, uh, it's it's basically just saying, these are all the categories we want to cover. Who do we know in each of these categories? And let's start reaching out to them. And then a lot of the times, it perpetuates on itself. Like, we'll have some of these speakers who are like, hey, do you need anybody doing this? Well, I know so and so, and she's got 150 million views, and we're like, okay, yeah, put us in touch. And so once, I think what happens is, once the word gets out that you have a conference, it actually becomes really easy to fill your conference full of people who are experts. Now, Mark Cuban, on the other hand, he was one that we had to build relationships with the right people for a long period of time before I could ask for that. And what was really cool about Mark was that we were just a few weeks out from the conference, and not a lot of people know this, by the way. We were a few weeks out from the conference, and I was like, we really need a heavy hitting A-lister. And so I'm like, who can I reach out to? And so I had this plan. I was going to email 100 of the top people, like A-list celebrities or people that I knew, and just ask, because everybody's at home and nobody's out, traveling the world, jet setting or doing anything like that. So it's like, everybody's at home. I just need to ask. So I got online and I started sending emails, and I sent the first one to Mark Cuban's team. And then the second one I sent over to PewDiePie. And by the time I was get to the third one, I heard back from Mark Cuban's team that we were good. And I'm like, okay, found it. Don't need to email anybody else. Never heard back from PewDiePie, but I got Mark Cuban. So I was excited about that.
Yeah, that works. When I just signed on I got onto the Facebook group and I saw the banner with all the people listed as far as speakers. And the first one on there, first day, was Mark Cuban. And I was like, I don't remember him being on the original speaker list, but that's awesome. I legitimately had just watched an interview about his thoughts about the upcoming landscape and like, how technology is going to work with all this. And there you all had it. So bravo to that. And I guess it just takes a little bit of research. I do a lot of these people who have bigger followings. I'm assuming they have a separate contact as far as emailing a representative, and that's kind of how you get that ball rolling.
So yeah, so if it's somebody like Mark Cuban, then you have to go through layers of people. But we happen to know, one of his right hand guys that like has his phone number that he just texted him, and literally like he sent me the text, and he sent me a screenshot, and he's like, and and on the text it's Cuban's just like, yeah, happy to, it's like, okay, this is great, I just got a text message from Mark Cuban. So it helps to know people in the right place. But again, like, those are relationships that you have to build. You have to be in the right place. You have to meet the people and interact with them and build trust with them, because they don't want to just give you, they're not just going to give you, what you want, if you just, if you don't build that relationship and that trust first.
Sure. And that goes back to what you were saying a second ago about actually building that community and not treating everything as a billboard. Now, during this event, we're in the industry where we're basically troubleshooters especially when you go live with or something along those lines. Did you all have anything in place for backup plans in case something went wrong? I noticed that just in the very, very few situations where there was a glitch or something like that, you had a contest ready. But for people that are thinking about maybe doing something like this, what are some maybe plans you all either had or improvised on the fly?
So it's interesting. We're kind of a ready, fire, aim type of a company, and but we do have systems put in place for when we don't, when we're not ready, fire, aim. Right? We'll have we've got things that we're ready to roll out, things that have been prepared, and then on top of that, I think that in the moment, there are things that you just need to understand, like, you're never going to make things perfect. You can try and try and try, but especially with conferences, come game day, any little thing can throw off your game. And we had to just be on the ball, like, ready to go. Just have things prepared. A problem solving type of personality. Excuse me, allergies here are just insane.
Oh, I understand.
um it, yeah, it takes a problem solving type of personality to be able to think on their feet, think quickly, and just roll on to the next thing, because the show can't stop. The show must go on. So even like a lot of the giveaways and things like that, it was like we we would do those things, but they would be impromptu. Like I was just like, okay, what do I need to do now? Okay, let's do a giveaway. And if we didn't do the giveaway, I would have brought Jeremy back on, and we would have had some back and forth banter while we were trying to fix these things. But it's you just have to you got to fill the space, or else you're going to lose people. So we had to keep the energy up, and yeah. But we weren't too worried about having serious problems. We had one on the last day where our presenter called us 2.5 hours before his session. He was supposed to go on live, and he's like, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to make it. Daryl leaves." He's like, "I'm not going to be able to make it. can I just film my presentation real quick and shoot it over to you? And I'm like, this is a 45-minute presentation. Just like filming that, rendering it, uploading it somewhere. I don't know if we're going to be able to make it in 2.5 hours. And ultimately, we were about 15 minutes late starting his session, but he got it to us. Done is better than perfect, right? And so
Sure.
you go 80%, and there could be a 20% margin of error, but you just go and you roll with the punches, and you just make it as good as you possibly can. And most of the time, your attendees won't even know the difference, because it's real life. So
Sure.
worked out
Sure.
well.
Yeah, and I think that brings a little bit more of a genuine factor to it. Now, you had some more help behind the scenes. It was Jeremy Vest.
Yeah.
Was he the one kind of on the controls? Is that kind of what it looked like there?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Jeremy was running the switching and all the behind the scenes stuff.
When back to the marketing aspect of things, when you switch to online versus an in-person meeting, you had said that you'd use ClickFunnels for this conference. How did your plan change as far as maybe trying to get more views, or what was your initial game plan as far as acquiring visitors to the live conference versus how you would do that maybe once you decided to go live?
Yeah, so our initial plan, our initial marketing really centers around local, right? We would go to different groups and organizations. We put on presentations. We collect emails. We would sell tickets live. We would, we'd have giveaways and things like that, and really just try to get the buzz, the buzz going locally here in DFW, and that that works. We filled our conference last year by just using that tactic. So the idea was we'll go and do the same thing again this year. But as soon as COVID hit, that shut everything down, and we're like, well, we can't do that anymore. So what's the plan now? And so my strategy became less about obviously we couldn't do live like in person. So the strategy became, let's take what we've been doing live online and run webinars each week. And so I did weekly webinars, and I would do them for different groups, and I would do them for our email list, and I would just every week I would do a webinar, and I got to the point where I could count on about 15 to 20% of the audience at the webinar purchasing a ticket to Video Marketing World, because of the systems that we put in place. So it again, it's one of those like ready, fire, aim types of things where it's like I knew that what I needed to do, and I knew that I just needed to do it, and I didn't have time to try and figure out what's how to do retargeting and how to do all this stuff, and how do I switch our online marketing, and really like maintain a really tight budget, because we were still refunding people. People are asking for refunds, and they didn't want to do online, and so we had a lot of things like that going on as well. So it's like I don't have money to spend, so I just need to do these webinars and tighten the belt and really make them count. And we did in the end. I mean, we ended up doing really well. So it worked out.
It sure did. It really did. As far maybe aside from that ready, fire, aim type mentality, is there, for anyone thinking about either starting a conference in person or going online, do you have any, I know it's very broad, general advice about warnings that you may want to give to these people as far as what they might be up against or what to look forward to?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, there's a couple of things. Like, number one, if you're thinking about starting a e- even online or in person, right? If you're thinking about starting some type of a conference or a summit, you want to make people that want what you have to offer. And so I would never tell somebody who has no somebody who's completely new to the conference industry, who doesn't have a list, doesn't have a following or some type of community backing them, to start a conference. It's the kiss of death, right? You'd think, oh, I got to go and find somebody to promote my conference. It's not going to happen. And so you want to have a base of people who are ready to jump on your ticket sales the day that you launch it. The second thing that I would say is, conferences, live conferences, in-person conferences are extremely expensive. The overhead of conferences is insane. I mean, last year our budget ended up being, I think, $60,000 for in-person conference, and that's cheap. Like most conferences are running multiple hundreds of thousands. 60,000 was cheap. This year, because we did it all online, our overhead was like $30. It's just the software, get everybody there on time, and then we just need to commit to 3 days. It was nothing. And so, the cost of things from the beginning. Otherwise, you can absolutely get hosed in the end if you don't know what you're doing.
Sure. So being budget minded is definitely key.
Yeah. Being budget minded, but then again, like making sure that you have a strategy for ticket sales that's going to work from day one, because selling tickets is hard. And one of the biggest things that we learned over the years is that people don't generally buy their tickets until even like in the last month. A month out, they're not buying tickets. It's really like the last 2 weeks is when you're going to see all of your ticket sales. And so we started marketing our events 6 months out, and we would sell a ticket here, sell a ticket there, and we'd had incremental price increases for our live conference, because we wanted to have kind of that FOMO effect, where it's like, hey, the ticket prices are going up next week. Make sure you get your tickets today. And so we'd sell tickets here and there, but the bulk of the ticket sales really comes in the last 2 weeks, when people are like, okay, I know that I can make it to this conference now, so I'll go ahead and pull the trigger. And it doesn't matter what the price is. Like, people are going to pay for their tickets. Most of the people are going to pay for their tickets in the last couple of weeks. And even if it's $400 cheaper to buy them 6 months earlier, it's going to happen every time. So just keep in mind kind of the buying, the buying philosophy, or how people shop. One thing that we tried to do to mitigate that too was to throw in bonuses, right? If you buy today, then you're going to have access to all of these extra things that you get instantly. You don't have to wait 6 months for them. You get them instantly. So that helped a little bit as well. But there's some marketing tactics that kind of go into selling conferences that anybody who's thinking about starting a conference, you need to really do some research on those tactics.
Right. Well, there's definitely so much I could dive into, from the topics from your speakers to just the mentality of actually pulling one of these things off. But I really do want to applaud you. And first of all, I thought it was an incredible deal, the price point that you had for us coming to visit you all in the Dallas area. I thought that was worth the flight and everything. And then it definitely delivered online. So thank you for that. But I do want to end by asking what else you have going on, and what's new with you, and is there anything that you kind of would like to put out there for anybody that's viewing this to check out as well?
Awesome. We have a lot going on in the video marketing world this year. Doing the online conference really opened our eyes to doing more of our business online. I mean, obviously, like, we're video marketing world, so it's like you think like we should be on social doing all of these different things, but we're creating more training and things like that we're going to be offering all throughout the year. So anybody who's interested in that can go to our website, videomarketing.world. And then if anybody's interested in talking to me one-on-one, or looking at consulting for their strategy or even their conference, they can message me. They can find me online on LinkedIn, or email me at scott@videomarketing.world.
Excellent. Well, definitely thank you very much for your time. To anyone out there, if you just go and check out their resources, you can tell that these guys really are focused on really delivering a quality product and helping people out, especially those small businesses that are looking to find their community. So Scott, thank you very much for joining me today. And hope everything in Dallas opens up here soon for you guys.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope we are able to get together in person in 2021 for sure, because I'm looking forward to checking out Texas for myself.
Awesome. Thank you.